Tiger fans, what's going on, guys? Yet another week down. We're getting closer to finally, mercifully, being able to wrap up this season and being able to put another one in the books. My brother and I, in a couple of weeks here, when the season finally does end, we are going to do a final team report card and talk about the season that was 2023. Usually this time of year, I'm kind of sad to see the season go because, you have baseball to watch every single night, you get to watch all the guys, but I don't really care. I'm kind of the point now where it's like, they surpassed what they won last year, and it just it doesn't feel like this team is drastically better than they were last year, even though considering they were mid 60s in wins last year, and now they're only 9 games under 500. But I think I'm at my wit's end of watching certain guys play every single day and seeing the same results. This week was a weird one for the team because of certain guys actually playing halfway decent. I also think the opponent has a huge influence on why certain guys actually had played well. So they had played the Reds this week, and because I live not super far from Cincinnati, I was blacked out and I couldn't watch all the Tiger games this week. I had to listen to a couple of them, and one of them I didn't even watch. The first 2 games of the series, the Reds came in and they shut down the Tigers game 1. Game 2, it was tied most of the game, and they lost. I think Reese Olson had a no-hitter through 6 in one of these games. Man, Reese Olson, he went through a little bit of a spurt there of not pitching that great. But his last 5 starts, my goodness, has that kid been so good. He's a guy that I legitimately think could be in the rotation for the next 6 to 7 years, and you would have no problem, seeing him there every 5th day. With how consistent he's been, how his fastball command's improved, how good his slider and curveball is, he's just a guy that I am excited to watch in the future. Now, I'm hoping it's not going to be a case like last year where I came on here and kind of hyped up Joey Wentz and I hyped up Alex Faedo, thinking that, hey, they had good results in spurts like Alex Faedo, but Joey Wentz had a 3.08 ERA. I think in his last few starts coming into the end of the year, I think he might have pitched in the AFL last year too, and actually had pitched really well. And Alex Faedo, his first 7 starts in the big leagues, he had an ERA barely over 3. And now you see both of these guys relegated to the bullpen, and it doesn't look like these guys are going to be starters anytime ever again. More so piggyback openers and middle and long relievers for now. Maybe they'll Michael Fulmer it and become more of a leverage reliever with more time, or if they even stay in the Tigers organization and not get traded or released. But I don't know, man. I just don't get that kind of vibe watching the stuff that Reese Olson has, because Joey Wentz doesn't have the kind of stuff that Reese Olson has. Joey Wentz, lower 90s fastball, trouble with command. The curveball's a good pitch, but I don't know if it's a plus pitch. The changeup has always been a work in progress with him. Alex Faedo, good fastball, wipeout slider, which is his slider's definitely a plus pitch, but it really doesn't have that outstanding third pitch. More of a guy that could get through a lineup one time. But Reese Olson's a guy that he seems like he could lean on, his fastball, slider, and his curveball. And they're above average pitches, and his command is a lot better than what Wentz or Faedo had. So I'm really excited for his progress, and I'm really excited to see, if he's in the rotation next year. I don't see why he wouldn't. I think, starting your rotation with Mize, Manning, Skubal, Olson is a hell of a start. And if for some weird reason they re-sign Erod or pick up Erod's option, or he decides to opt in, which he's not going to, Erod, that wouldn't be a bad rotation whatsoever. You got 2 lefties and 3 righties. So, but they ended up losing the first 2 games, and the third game of the series, I didn't get to watch at all because I was at work, but I watched the highlights. The Tigers basically blew it open. Buck Farmer, former Tiger, came out in I think it was the 7th or 8th inning, and Matt Vierling hit a grand slam off of him. Torkelson had a home run this series, and he's sitting at 28 right now for the year. But, man, that Angel series, it quickly changed for Torkelson. So they lose 2 or 3, end up going out on the road to California, right? So Anaheim's the place the Tigers historically have not played great. If you go and look at the Tigers' record in the Big A, it's not pretty. Most of the time, if the Tigers go out on a West Coast swing and they take 1 of 3 from the Angels, it's usually a good series. Go in and look up Rick Porcello's numbers as a Tiger at Anaheim. I remember one time he had 2 starts in one season where he gave up 9 runs in Los Angeles. He got crushed both times he pitched there. He did not play. The Tigers just in general have never played really good there. And the Angels always were playing the Tigers tough for the most part at that place. But the Tigers ended up sweeping there for the first time since '93. The first game of the series was an absolute laugher. Javier Baez hit a home run. He ended up having 4 RBIs, a double. Torkelson almost hit his 29th home run. And the Tigers blew that game open. It was like 11-2. And it was an absolute rout. So you're looking at the rest of the series, whatever. So game 2, this game absolutely pissed me off because I'm watching it. And the Tigers were up. And the Angels are coming back. And in the 9th inning, it's a 5-3 lead. Or 5-2 lead. And Alex Lange comes out, gives up a 2-run shot, makes it 5-4, strikes out the second hitter, gets Brett Phillips up of all people. Brett Phillips is the most hits a baseball with a freaking wet pillowcase kind of hitter there is. And Craig Monroe and Matt Shepard, I had to bear the responsibility of listening to Matt Shepard and Craig Monroe call a baseball game because I was not in town. I was in Michigan this past weekend, and I had to watch it on Bally. I couldn't watch it on MLB.TV because of the blackout. And these 2 dickheads, first off, Bally must have told Matt Shepard to shut his mouth because there was just like periods of time where I thought my TV was on mute, which it should have been. And then all of a sudden he would just randomly talk. And then Craig Monroe, who's just utterly too much of a tryhard to try to seem like he's got all this charisma and personality. Matt Shepard sitting there talking, running his yap, and after the home run, gets to 2 strikes on it, and Craig Monroe goes, "Oh, you got to be careful of this guy. He can hurt you." And sure as shit, on cue, 2 strikes in the count. Alex Lange puts a fastball up at it, and Brett Phillips rips it into the right field bleachers and ties the game. I was pissed. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. I had had enough. That was a bullshit game to even let them tie it. And I just shut it off and ended up going to bed. I'm like, I don't give a shit if they lose. I don't care. They deserve to after how bad the Angels were getting like 3 hit going into the 9th. They were getting their shit wrecked. And Craig Monroe was talking about, of course, just running his yap. Oh, this is a night that the Angels hitters want to forget. This has not been a good night for them. And all of a sudden, they smacked 2 home runs in that 1 inning. And I was pissed listening to Dumb and Dumber up there running their fucking yap about and can't even call a ball game. And all of a sudden, they score, and it's 5-5. And I said, fuck it. I went to bed, and I woke up, and I seen Miggy ended up hitting a double, and they ended up winning 6-5. But Torkelson, 0 for 4, and it was a hard 0 for 4. I mean, he struck out 3 times. I don't know if someone, like if Torkelson wears contacts or something. I don't know if someone put the wrong prescription in. I don't know if he had dirt in his eye. But some of them swings he was taking, it was like watching me at softball. Like just leaning out over the plate super early, foul tip and everything. He had about 3 curveballs that were right down the middle because the Angels pitchers weren't really pitching that great. And the Angels as a whole are horrible. Like, if you think it's tough watching the Tigers, watching that lineup with that Angels team where you got Trout and Ohtani on the bench, and Ohtani packs up all his stuff this week, and everyone thinks, like, all of a sudden Ohtani's abandoning the team, but really he thought he was about to have an operation, so he just cleaned out his locker. And then you're watching Trout and Ohtani sitting there giving Miggy a surfboard for his final commemorative series at the Big A. And then all of a sudden you got to watch all these guys out there, just like Eduardo Escobar is one of the worst third basemen I've ever seen in my entire life. You want to talk about a guy that had a tough series defensively? He's absolutely horrible. O'Hoppe had a bad series. Neto had a bad series. Grichuk had a bad series. But I will say that Shamwell kid, he can hit. Like, I can see why the Angels promoted that guy so quick to the big leagues. He didn't have a lot of power right now. He did get his first major league home run this series. I forget off of who, but man, can that kid put the ball in play? He has got such quick hands and such a line drive kind of swing. So he was fun to watch, but the rest of that lineup, Brett Phillips, Jesus, is it brutal to watch? I can't believe if I was an Angels fan, knowing what kind of poker chips you had there with Ohtani and Trout, and now they're thinking about trading Mike. They'll trade Mike Trout if he wants to go, but it's like, okay, you trade Mike Trout, but he hasn't played a full season in like 4 years. He doesn't nearly have the value he would have when he was 27. He's got back issues now, and he's fallen off. He had his worst year of his career this year. And he had Ohtani, who accumulated almost a 10-WAR season, and he's not even going to play 140 games. Do you know how insane that is? A 10-WAR season, and he's a DH. I know pitching helps him too, but he's a DH. It's like, Jesus Christ, to have the production he had and not even play a full season is absolutely insanity. And you could have traded that, and now you didn't. And now they got all these guys that are about to walk, and all the dudes that they were released on the free agent waivers. And they got nothing to show for it. And that lineup is a brutal watch. I mean, horrible at bats, so many strikeouts, not a lot of great hitters. And I think that's more so why the Tigers won the series versus that the Tigers are playing better. Because their team is just not that good. Their pitching is super weak. And the Tigers did some damage on it. They were getting a bunch of, damage early. Like Zach Short hits a 3-run shot to start that game the other day. On Saturday. And then today, Jake Rogers picks up Torkelson and Carpenter. And all of a sudden, Carpenter's had a complete power outage. He's got like one extra base hit in his last 50 at-bats after hitting 39 home runs in a week. So his bat's really gone cold. He's hitting 280 over the last 40 or 50 at-bats, but all of a sudden he doesn't have any extra base power. And then Torkelson had just such a bad last two games of the series. Like today, he came up with the bases loaded, popped out to the first baseman, swinging at sliders in the opposing batter's box like he's taking hitting advice from Javier Baez. Him, Veerling, and Carpenter were absolutely horrible this series. And the rest of the lineup hit well. All of a sudden, Tyler Nevin is hitting. And it's like, what the hell? You know a pitching staff is bad if Tyler Nevin's hitting. And Tyler Nevin, he had a double. He had a few RBIs. He had a hell of a series, a bunch of great swings. So... And Jake Rogers had a couple of home runs this series. He's got 19. So I think it's more so that the Angels are really bad versus, the Tigers are 9 games under 500, and they're better than they were record-wise last year. And if you look at their runs per game, I think it was since August, they're averaging 4.3 runs a game, and they were averaging almost under 3 before that. So their offense has been playing better. It does help that Torkelson and Carpenter had such hot months in August to really pump those numbers up. But overall, it's it's another week down, another week closer to the end of the season. Sawyer Gipson-Long had another start against the Angels, struck out 11 over 5 innings. Again, I want to see him face a better lineup that's not so strikeout happy and not so many bad hitters. Like the Tigers are about to go to the Dodgers. And even so, it's the Dodgers already clinched that division. And the Tigers are kind of doing what they did last year, where if you look at their record in September last year, that's when they played some of their best baseball. But you also have to think when they were playing some of their best baseball, most of the teams were either clinched or out of contention, and they were just letting prospects play and letting guys get reps. So it really wasn't a fair assessment of the actual talent of the squad. And the Tigers right now, they've played better on the road this year. If they went into Chavez Ravine and took 2 or 3 against a Dodgers team that has absolutely nothing to play for, and they might let Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and if I don't think Kershaw's going to start because Kershaw I think started Saturday, but let some of these guys rest and not play every single day. It wouldn't surprise me. If you don't see all the regulars, with only a few weeks left of the season and trying to, get these guys ready for when baseball counts here in October in a couple of weeks. So if the Tigers went in and took a couple from the Dodgers, took 2 or 3 before they head off, I think they got one more trip. I think it's to Oakland after the Dodgers, if I'm not mistaken, before they come home for the final homestand. It's not oh wow, the Tigers are having such a great having such a great road trip, and they're playing such great baseball to close out the end of the season. It's it's just kind of a team's up by in football where a team's up by 40, and the third string's in, and they're not really attempting to stop you because they're up by so many points. It just is what it is. They're out there kind of just running the motions. So I wouldn't say it's indicative of how much better they're playing or what kind of performance they have. It's more so the other teams are just, there's nothing for them to play for. So it was the first sweep there since '93, which is insane. Because like I said, I know they haven't played that great in Anaheim in a long time. I guess it was nice to see some of the other some of the bats come up and heat up in the bottom half of the order. I'm not going to complain about watching some winning baseball. I really wish it would have been more so when it counted. And this is the middle of the season, and they're trying to fight for a division that, Minnesota's only 8 games over 500, and they're going to win this with probably 84 victories, in a division that's absolutely dog shit. But, it is what it is. At least we're getting to watch some wins. At least we're getting to see the offense perk up. And I will say, I'm not trying to make this video too negative. Coming from last year where the team in total only had 100 and I think it was like 12 or 15 home runs, to this year where they're well over 150. And when we did our Tigers preview video, we took the over on 150. It's good to see. Like, hopefully Torque has been really good about shaking it off after a rough series, and I fully expect him to get to 30 home runs. I think he's got 3 more in him. I think he's going to get to 31. And I think Carp's going to get a couple more home runs before the season ends. He's got another hot streak in him. And I think Jake Rogers will get to 20 home runs. He only needs 1 more. So to have a lineup that's got finally a legitimate 30 home run hitter in it, 2 guys that are going to hit 20 home runs, and if Riley Green ever stops diving and hurting himself, he's another 20 home run guy for sure. So you look in the middle of that order with those 4 guys, you're closing in, let's see, 20, 40, 60, 80. You're closing in almost 100 home runs because the Torque has 30. It's 90. So it's good to see that you finally have a middle of the order that, can actually provide some thump and actually put up crooked numbers. And it's not just a bunch of anemic guys hitting 200 that have 7 home runs. But, God, just imagine if Javier Baez could ever hit. I mean, he's a guy that could hit 20 home runs. And, Riley Green's a guy that could for sure hit 20 home runs. And then, I don't want to put too much on Colt Keith right off the rip, but I think Colt Keith is a guy that could hit 15 to 18 home runs if he ever got 145 games in the big leagues. He had 27 down in, between a couple of levels this past year. And Justin Henry Loy, I think, could hit 15 home runs in the big leagues. Now, I don't want to put that kind of expectations on them if they were to make the team out of spring, like we kind of did Torkelson and Green, like their first year, and all of a sudden, like, Torque barely got to 10, like Riley, and the power just wasn't there, and the extra base power really wasn't there because they were adjusting to the league. It's kind of like Parker Meadows, where Parker Meadows went like 0 for 27, and he finally got off the schneid, but he's playing such good defense, man. And he got a couple of hits this series in Anaheim. So, and he drew a few walks. Like, that's one thing I really like about Parker Meadows so far. It's like he was slumping, but his at-bats were good. He was still drawing walks. He doesn't have that many more strikeouts versus walks. So that's good too, that he's still, up there giving you a good at-bat even when he's not hitting and still trying to get on base and utilize the speed. And he's playing such a good center field. But I don't want to put the kind of expectations on like Keith and Malloy next year because like we thought the same thing in 22. It's like, yep, Torkelson and Green are here and the lineup, people are sleeping on it. All of a sudden this team that was, good and almost won 80 games in 21 is going to be so much better in 22 because we got these top prospects here. And then, say Keith and Malloy comes up and say they struggle right off the rip and, one of them gets sent back down or both of them get sent back down for some more seasoning. It could happen. We've already saw it with Torkelson. So it's not a guaranteed thing. But for all the negative, I got to say that is a for sure positive. And if Scott Harris could ever just solidify a few more positions and get some legitimate bats, like just trade from some of this depth that you have. You have so many left-handed hitting outfielders. You got bullpen pieces you can move yet again because you got other guys waiting in the wings that could replace those dudes. But you can't do like you did last year and you trade Gregory Soto and you get Matt Vierling and Nick Maton. And Nick Maton's down there being the greatest 4A player of all time. And Matt Vierling didn't, hit more than a single for 2.5 months. That doesn't benefit your team. That doesn't make you any better. That doesn't work on the one need that you have, which was offense. Now, I will say defensively wise, Matt Vierling really helped you a lot. Nick Maton, not so much. He was a horrible defender. But they need to do something coming to this offseason. And the one thing that's really frustrating is not seeing what Justin Honey-Malloy could do or Colt Keith with a month to go. You don't even have a barometer of where they're going to be even if they start next year in the big leagues. And that's why I was so goddamn adamant about letting them have at least a few weeks of at-bats, because it's not a be-all, end-all, but at least you can kind of get an idea of what they might be like if they're in the big leagues, at the start of next year. If they go up there and get blown away, you're like, yeah, maybe they might need some more seasoning for a month or two and start AAA. And if they went up there and, ripped the cover off the ball for 5 weeks, you're like, okay, maybe there's a potential possibility that they could be the guy to start the season next year. They'll have to earn it in spring. And it would give them an idea what to work on in the offseason to get up there. But that's a horse that I've beat dead for the last 2 months. But neither here nor there. They swept in Anaheim, lost 2-3 to Cincy. They're going to go to the Dodgers. It wouldn't surprise me if they went 2-3 there because the Dodgers aren't playing for anything. Really want to see Torkelson get to 30. Hopefully his bat heats up as we're coming into these final road series of the year. Like to see Carpenter hit a couple more home runs. Be nice to see Jake Rogers get there to over 20 as well. I assume that we're going to continue to see a lot of Andy Ibanez and Zach McKinstry. Akil Baddoo hit a home run the other day. I don't know. I don't give a shit about the roster construction. I don't give a shit about lineup construction. I don't give a shit about who's playing it really at this point in time because the guys I wanted to see aren't coming up. I'm more so just focused on wanting to see Torkelson get to 30 and Carp continuing to rip baseballs and see Rogers get to 20. And I want to see Sawyer Gibson-Long pitch against a quality opponent to see how his stuff plays. Because so far, goddamn, that guy's got some strikeout stuff. And so far, his stuff has looked really good. But I want to see him against someone a little bit better than the Angels. So that's all I got for you guys this week. I'll be back next week. Hopefully get a baseball banter in. We're going to start previewing the playoffs and whatnot like that. Get Mikey Boy on here. And soon my brother will be on here. We'll do, like I said, the season in review video. Give a final grade to every single player. And I guess just enjoy watching the last couple weeks of Miggy, guys. And because his career is about to be over here in the blink of an eye because it's real close. And I don't know. What are you guys watching for? Let me know in the comments. What's keeping you watching these last few games? So I got for you guys this week. Have a good one. Go Tigers.